Alright, so this is going to be the lesson on answering the three economic questions that we'll be talking about and looking at in this section in our book. Alright, what goals and values affect how a society answers the three economic questions? So every society has goals and values that they're going to uh, think about and try to work out and use in their society when they answer the three economic questions. And those are, what goods and services should we produce? So they could be anything from products to a service, getting your hair cut, building a car, anything like that. So should we produce everything that everybody needs and want, or should we just only produce certain things? How much should we produce of it? Should only certain people get it? So how should we produce them? Should we use as efficient as possible? Should we use coal, oil, electricity? Should use service should be education should be public or should be private? So all these types of things are come into play for societies when they think about these. And who should consume it? Should everybody get it? Or maybe just the middle class, or maybe certain races or ethnicities, or maybe just the rich, or maybe the poor. So it depends on what they're doing, but what should we do? Should we give it to everybody or not? And the reason we have these questions are because resources are scarce. So every society must answer the three questions listed above. It doesn't matter what society it is in the whole world, every society basically answers these questions. Now, some don't get into it as much as others, countries, so it might be different for the Bushmen in Australia compared to United States or anything like that. So uh, any place in the world is going to answer these, or any society in the world is going to ask these three questions. So it does not matter where they live, they're going to go through these. What we decide to produce comes at an opportunity cost. How much should go to consumers, goods, education, defense? And when we make these decisions, there's a trade-off. So if we talked about before, there is an opportunity cost for everything. So if you choose to do something, then there's a cost for not doing the other, or there's a cost for doing what you decide to make that choice of. But then there's going to be a trade-off. And we've talked about this too, that governments go through this. Should we put more into consumer goods, more money into that, or into education, or defense? If we put more into defense, then there's less money for education, or vice versa. So every decision that's made, there's going to be an opportunity cost for all the trade-offs that you've decided to do. All right, in the economic system, so there's quite a bit on this page, so it kind of looks like it's kind of messy, but I'm going to go through it each part with you, so you can write down what you think is important on there and add to your notes that you've already taken over this section. So economic systems, methods and principles society uses to produce and distribute goods and services in order to satisfy the needs and wants of its society or people. Missed that part on there, I guess. The three economic questions, and I've already talked about these on the other slide, but we're going to go through them a little bit more here in depth. So how should these goods and services be produced? They all require some type of factors of production. Land, because you have to have the land to either grow the product or have your building on. You need the people to make the product, to grow the product, to pick the product, anything like that. So you need the people to work for you. And then, of course, there's the capital, which is the physical capital, the buildings, the equipment, the tractors, the machines, the desks, the computers, and then the human capital, which would be the expertise of the people working there, such as maybe like accountants, or their expertise from the training they've had to work on a certain machine or grow certain goods, or excuse me, grow certain produce in the land. They know what's good for the fertilizer and stuff like that. What goods and services should be produced? And like I said before, should we produce everything or just what is needed and what people want? And who should get these goods and services? Who should get the food, the medical care, the college, be able to go to college, consumer goods, luxury items? Should just be certain people, the ones that can afford it, the only ones that work hard, the people that are productive citizens, or should everybody get it no matter what? So our economic goals, all societies use these to some degree. Efficiency, if a society knows exactly what it needs and wants, then it increases. So if they don't know exactly what they need and want, they might be making things that people don't really need, and it's wasting their resources. They're wasting their time, money, energy, labor, maybe the land, and the machinery, stuff like that. If a company produces something no one wants or needs, they are wasting the resources, such as, I'll give an example, let's say everybody wanted laptop computers instead of desktops. Well, if a company's making desktop computers and nobody wants them, then they're just wasting all their time, money, resources, land, labor, capital, factors of production, because they won't be selling them because people don't want them. So they're not being very efficient on what they want to, what people want or need. Freedom, everyone makes their own choices to some limit. We can pretty much, in our society, decide what we want to make, what we want to produce for people. Now, not completely. The government does limit us to some things. They do have rules on like fat intake or the amount of fats as in food or sugar, or on cars, the exhaust emissions. There's only so much. Companies, they can only put so much of their factor into the air from their production. So the government does limit us on certain things, or to a certain extent, not completely where they rule or control everything, but there are limits on that. So we do have some freedom. Security, goods and services are available when we need them. So we pretty much, when we need something, we can go out and get it. Basically, we can go to the store, we can go to the gas station, we get a paycheck because we worked, our paycheck's there, we did our job, so we have the security of knowing that we will be able to buy things we need or get the care we need or anything like that. Equity, fairness, should everyone get the same? And I kind of talked about that before. Or should just certain people get it if they can afford it or if they can't afford it? Who should get it? So try to be as fair as possible, but then you also want to make sure that people are getting it that need it and not getting it that don't really need it and trying to take one over on the system. And growth, innovation is huge for this, and we're going to talk about more innovation later. We've kind of already talked before with entrepreneurs. So innovation is the process of new methods, products, or ideas. The economy must grow in order to have more income and for the standard of living to increase. So when an entrepreneur has a new idea or takes an existing idea and improves it, that's going to help it grow. Same with a company. They have a department that's going to be doing research and development. They're going to look for better ways to make a product. Apple computers and Apple iPhones and all that, they're continuing to think of better things that people might need. That's just an example there. So if there's innovation, then you're going to grow, and if you grow, you're going to make more money. Make more money, then there's going to be more products or services and more jobs for people, and people can buy things, so it just kind of keeps going from there. Then we're going to get into types of societies, and we're going to talk about 4 of them. There's 3 others on the other page. The one we're going to talk about only today is the traditional. And a good example of them is like the Peruvians. Now there's other ones in the world. This is just an example that's in the book, and it's a pretty good example. Usually the traditional societies, they're very small and close-knit. So all the family members live around there. They pretty much stay together in the same village or town. They usually have the same habits of each other. They use the same things over and over. They have the customs of doing things a certain way, the rituals, and they don't really like much change at all. They don't really care to change because what's working for them works, and they think, why change it? In the family unit, that's really big on traditional, that their family is very important to them. And the boys usually follow in what their fathers do for a living, and girls follow their mothers. So the boys usually are in agriculture, so growing things or hunting, building, stuff like that. And then the girls usually are with their mothers for the cooking, the making of clothing, um, and anything else like that that would be helped to sell. So very traditional, like this says, what they do from day to day. Agriculture and hunting are usually at the center of their lives because that's how they live, basically. They grow what they need and they hunt what they need. They don't take any more than they need, don't grow any more than they need. They just do what they have or need at that time, and that's it. When they need more, they'll get more. When they don't, then they don't worry about it. They don't waste anything. They're very efficient on that. They're also big on their laws and their beliefs, especially religious beliefs. Um, so their religion is very important to them, and their laws are very important that everybody follows the laws so that the whole village or town runs very smoothly. And they are slow to adapt to new ideas and technology. Um, what's working for them works, so they think, why change it? I don't need to change it. It's doing all right now. And technology, they might go for technology, but once again, if it's working for them, they don't see any need for it. They might, eventually say, oh, that might make it easier for us, or we can grow more because our family's growing, our village is growing, but they're very slow on taking in those new ideas. And the last three, the types of societies, is a market, and it's kind of like a free market, and we're kind of close to that. I'm going to talk about actually which one we're like. Free market is really pretty much the government doesn't really have very much say at all. They kind of let the people do what they want, basically grow what they want, produce what they want, sell what they want, things like that. So it's pretty, government's not very much involved in a free market. A centrally planned is the government's heavily involved in everybody's lives. And a good example of a centrally planned society is like North Korea. So pretty much the government tells them exactly what they can and cannot do, what they're going to produce, where they're going to work, where they're going to live, stuff like that. So the government's very involved, and people don't really have much say at all in their daily lives. They might have a little bit, but not very much. Our society in America is more like mixed. So we are a free market, but we are kind of centrally planned. And now when I say centrally planned, it's because the government does have some say in things we can and cannot do. So not to the extent like North Korea, but there are laws that we have to go by and things that we can and cannot do. So we're not totally free where we can just go out and make or buy or sell or produce what we want. So there are laws that we have to follow and regulations, things like that. So our society is more of a mixed society. Factor payments. This is income people receive in return for supplying factors of production. Remember, those are land, labor, and capital. So any money that comes in for something that you've provided, either land, labor, or capital, that is a factor payment. So, such as your rent. So you pay somebody rent, that's their factor payment. You get a paycheck, that's your factor payment because you went to work and you put in your hours and now you get a paycheck for that. Banks get interest from loans. So that's their factor payment. That's how they make their money. And profit. Companies make a profit. Entrepreneurs make a profit. They sell their product, take off the expenses, and then that's how much they make after that. So anything that comes into a person or a company would be a factor payment. Profit, and you might know what this is from if you're taking a business class. Profit is the amount of money a business receives when all expenses are paid. So you start out with a revenue, that's how much, all the money you've taken in from the sale of your goods or services. And when you take that money, the revenue, subtract all your expenses, then whatever left is your profit. So all businesses and entrepreneurs and things like that, that's what they make. That's what's after everything else. Safety net. These are government programs to help people when needed. And these are things such as during layoffs, so when people get laid off from a job, they can get unemployment for a while, not forever. They do have to eventually get a job, and their unemployment does get cut off after, I think, 6 months or whatever. Sometimes they do extend it for a little bit longer, but does help them out for a while. Or injury, you can get workman's compensation or disability insurance or disability payments if you're injured on the job. Now, some people do get that forever if they can never work again in their life because they were injured on the job. So there are programs for people from the government that will help them there if they do get injured. Natural disasters, tornado, hurricanes, anything like that, floods, that helps people out when, or towns or cities, states, that the government has money set up for them to help if things totally wipe out a town or a city or a state or anything like that from some type of disaster. And then Social Security income for retirement, and we've talked about Social Security, that since if you're retired, you don't have any income coming in because you don't have a job. So the Social Security, the money you put in all the time you were working, that's kind of the government has set up that program to help people out. That's not a whole lot of money, but it is something to help people out. So you really shouldn't depend on just Social Security for when you retire. You should have other investments there. And the last two, efficiency, meeting current needs. And we've already kind of talked about efficiency. If you're very efficient and you're using all your factory production to their fullest, and you're not wasting anything. You're not wasting any land, not any labor, not any of your capital resources, any materials, things like that. So you're meeting everybody's needs and wants, then you're being very efficient. And for growth, building for the future. If you're growing, then that means you're going to be making money, and you can make new products. People are going to be getting more jobs. You're going to have to hire more people. They're going to go out and buy things. So if you're growing, that's what you want. So you're hoping that you grow by making a profit so that you are going to build for your future company or your service that you have. So that is the end of the lesson, and if you need to, go back over it and add this to your notes, and most of this is right in the book, so look that up if you have any questions.